own show prep. So, so he had no idea.
I just barely make it in.
I'm sure you can tell, but we don't show.
I mean, let's put the cards down on the table here.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a 6-Rig Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ, break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the 6-Rig champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad. The 6-Rig Kane show. The 6-Rig Kane show. The 6-Rig Kane show. You know.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the 6-Rig Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Hello, everybody. Vish didn't even want to wear his Canes hat today.
I mean, the Cowboy. Usually, this is not the when the Cowboys are actively playing. I have done this before. It's not related to today's this last weekend's festivities.
Sure, man, sure.
Ooh, and the Cowboys just scored touchdowns.
There we go. Who scored it?
Dak ran it in from 20 yards out.
Gosh, I have CeeDee Lamb playing, and I need him to score in order for me to have a shot. Anyways,
we got some friends in the chat. Daniel Berry, Pimp Down.
What's going on, fellas?
Might be just the three, just us and them by the end of the season if it keeps going like this. But
yeah, no, I look. It doesn't bear repeating, but here we are. The Kings drop another game. Let's be quite honest with you. Another winnable game. Another game in which they had the opportunity to compete each side in the first half, even with some of the mistakes that they made and some of the things that were going on. You still had a chance going up, going into the half with the lead. But the wheels just kind of fell off. And then, look, I'll say this, right? I mean, we can every show in America right now every show in Miami, every show that has anything to do with Miami Hurricanes football is probably talking about the same thing. So, I kind of want to focus on some other things, but I think we have to kind of mention the fact that, some of the stuff that we saw last year is still creeping up on this team. And I know, look, I want to be the positive one, right? And I want to say, look, it's still only year 2. They're still in the process of weeding out some of the ugly, some of the bad, some of the crap. And some would say Mario's doing a great job. And then there's the other side, right? Where it's like, oh, here we go. Same old thing. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And so you've got the same undisciplined style play. You've got the same mistakes, boneheaded mistakes. You've got, I hate to say it. I'm this guy. I hate to say it, but I hate to see Henry Parrish celebrating that he got a 12-yard pickup or a 10-yard pickup, and he's at the 2-yard line celebrating, getting crazy, and then you go ahead and you shoot yourself in the foot and fumble the next play, right? I don't like those kind of things. I think that at this point right now, Miami needs to do a little bit less of that, a little bit more of staying disciplined and understanding what you're doing on the football field is I just feel like they're sometimes they do things that they don't understand the consequences of their actions. And I think that has as much to do with the players as it does with the coaching. And I think that they're still working, right? It's a work in progress. And it sounds like an excuse. And it sounds like, the same old story, and it sounds like the same old Miami Hurricanes. But I do truly believe, and I want to get your take on this, both of you, Blue and Vish, that this is a better football team. But yes, what you saw this weekend also was that the depth is still not there, and the opportunity to capitalize when you've got the upper hand um, against a really good football team, but a team that was beatable, a team that you could have got in there and taken a win. Um, is there, right? It's still there, and so this is a good football team. This is not a great football team by any stretch of the imagination, and you saw it in the way that they performed in the second half primarily, but you saw it throughout the whole game. The self-inflicted, as someone said, I think Fire Marine, self-inflicted wounds, shooting themselves in the foot constantly. Coaching staff making some critical errors, whether it was Guidry and with that flag. I know that it's very it's very petty, if some people want to call it, but at the end of the day, you have to keep your composure as a coach.
Yeah, and
he kind of crossed the line a little bit. So I want to get your take on it, Vince. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it's a petty call, but look, all things considered on the officials, I mean, they had no issues holding on North Carolina on basically every play. So, I mean,
right.
I mean,
they have
really
14 penalties for over 2.
We can't really look at that and be like, even if that one call was, and it was a critical call because it was 4th and 1 and gave them the first down to tie the game up. But to your point, Jazz, I think the frustrating thing for me wasn't just as Fire Marine said, not just the self-inflicted wounds. I mean, the 3 biggest plays were the 3 turnovers out in the last play of the game, which doesn't really cares, but it was TVD, it was Matt Lee, and it was Henry Parrish, as you said earlier. I mean, those are your guys. Those are your reliable guys that you're like, these are the guys. Like, this was not a freshman we had to force in there to because someone was it. Like, these are the guys. Like, I mean, you don't expect Matt Lee to, when you're trying to drive to take the lead back after North Carolina hit us over the top, to not be able to snap the ball. And it's ironically snapped it in between Parrish and TBD, who both batted the ball out of each other's hands. It's just, these are the players that you kind of expect to step up and not make those kinds of errors. And this was a game of, like you said, those are the kind of the ones that stand out. That there's just a lot of boneheaded plays, a lot of mistakes, so many 3rd down longs given up. I mean, the first touchdown was 3rd and goal from the 18. I don't know what coverage we're in, but Takori got beat over the middle, but there was no one else even in the end zone. It's 3rd and goal from the 18. How are your safeties not in the we need Al Golden in there to line the safeties up on the goal line. What are we doing here? I don't understand what that was. I thought our safeties were really bad in this game, which is not something we've said this year. Got beat over the top, as I mentioned in the second half. Gave up so many big plays, just throughout, all the explosive plays. And part of that's UNC is a really good team. But you look at the ACC Players of the Week, it's UNC's receiver, their quarterback, and their running back. I mean, that is a shocking indictment of how bad our defense was. And then, that puts the elements on the offense to make up for it. And, TVD has the numbers from the game, but there were plays out there to be made that he didn't make, and we didn't have margin fair because of the mistakes and because of the defense. I mean, even at the end, cut it to 14, and there were still 7.5 minutes left. Let's be real. You're not going to win this game because something will go wrong. But, we're maybe the defense can get a 3-and-out. They give a 60-yard run.
Yeah.
And that made it a three possession game again.
But that shows the lack of depth. They were tired, man. They were tired, and UNC did exactly right. They had a great game plan. They made adjustments in the second half, and they ran the play that was going to continue to wear them down. That's exactly what they did. And
the Canes actually ended up. To your point, the Canes actually ended up winning the time of possession overall for the game.
Yeah.
But that third quarter, the rapid turnovers really kind of stuck the defense out there for. But then again, giving up a touchdown on 3rd and whatever it was, 20 from the 33 or whatever. Come on.
Yeah, it's a terrible.
Come on. Look, two of their touchdowns were on 3rd and more than 15. You can't do that and win.
Pip Down says here, Blue. I want to get this to you, right? Because he wrote about. I think the most disappointing thing about Saturday was the effort. We expected a team to be pissed off. Instead, they played like it was just another game. I kind of disagree with that. I think that they look. Blue, you mentioned this a lot too, right? Going into the season, was that the depth was better, but it still wasn't there. right? We're still not there when it comes to having depth. Not only that, we're getting some disappointing play from some of the players that we thought that were going to come in and be like these, let's just throw it out there, right? The Leonard Taylors and some of those guys that are just not getting it done. Nigel Leak I know he's been a little hurt, but he really hasn't gotten the pressure that we think he was going to get from an edge rushing kind of guy, right? So there's a lot of that stuff, but I don't think there was a lack of effort. I think that at the end of the day, when you wear a team out and you have no depth, it's going to look like this as well. It's going to look like North Carolina running for 300 yards or 250, whatever it was, right? It's going to look like they're not giving the effort, but it's more about them just being kind of beat up. I think that they gave the effort. I know that the score doesn't look indicative of what the game was like because that third quarter, and Vish, you mentioned this to me, right? The third quarter is what screwed everything up. Obviously, everybody knows that. But I still think you saw some fight. I still think you saw the Canes with the effort. It's just that at the end of the day, they didn't have the depth, and quite frankly, there was some poor play on both the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball that led to, some of these mistakes and some of these big plays that UNC found themselves getting. So I kind of want to get your take based off of what we kind of spoken about, like what you think of this team as a whole right now, sitting at 4-2, which is actually not terrible. I understand it's two crappy losses to two games that we could have. Well, I know for sure the GT game we could have won. The UNC game was there for us, and we didn't make the adjustments. What's your take on this team right now after this UNC loss, and just kind of go into this Clemson game 4-2?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to bash every week because what good is it going to do? I mean, they have to get better, and they have to correct a lot of the mistakes. I mean, let's face it, I don't, because people text me on the side and send me all these things, how I'm a Debbie Downer. And no, I'm not. The whole thing is you could just see, I know how fans are. I know how Miami fans are. And they want to get to 0 to 60 quickly. It's not going to happen. It's just not enough depth, as I said at the beginning of the year. You got to face this. You got to take one game at a time. Most likely, Miami's going to be underdogs in 4 of the last 6 games. I mean, definitely. I mean, I don't see them being an NC State's going to come down to being the game, in my mind, whether they're a 6-6 team or a 7-5. We blew that opportunity with Georgia Tech to have any choice in there. They've got to come out and play one game at a time and then correct the mistakes. Because if they come out against Clemson and do the same thing, and give the game away and show lack of depth, what good is it? What good is it? You're not learning. Now, you got these coaches for a reason, to coach. So you take what you did in the Georgia Tech game and then try to correct it for this last game. Did they do that? Well, I don't think they made all that many mistakes in the Georgia Tech game that, as we said, they should have won the game. No, they didn't play perfect, but you know what? Everybody's due. Pittsburgh beat the Christmas out of Louisville. So anything can happen.
Yep.
My point is, this week, you look back in practice, and you got to stop. I mean, at these days, I listen to these questions and these, at these press conferences that they ask over and over again. Everybody knows what the deal is. I mean, you can't belabor the boy. How come Brown's not playing more? How come this guy's not playing more? We're not in practice. You think that, and I've said this, guys, forever. Do you think that coaches sabotage their program on purpose by playing guys who don't deserve to play? And that's why I'm saying, why are we, not us, but why are people questioning the decisions made by the coaches? If they say that this guy's better, then you know what? He's done it in practice, and that's what we have to do. But my point is this, all the mistakes that you guys said, I mean, we were in, and we had our chances. I mean, I was sitting at the edge of my seat at halftime thinking, you know what? It just got to play a little bit smarter, a little bit more aggressive. Can't make turnovers. And they did. Is North Carolina a much better team? No.
I don't think so.
No, but they're a better team because they have more depth at different positions. I don't see us running for 296 against anybody of quality. Our best days were the first couple of games. And that's one of my things. Again, we don't want to play Alabama, LSU, and Wisconsin off the bat. But playing Bethune and Miami of Ohio and those teams kind of, other than Texas A&M, and I think that, A&M kind of, we were fortunate to play. We played, we got breaks in that game. We played.
And we didn't even run the ball well in that game either. So.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, if you continue to talk about the same mistakes in every game, you're not learning. Right. And I think before you get you think that North Carolina ran the ball. Jesus. Clemson can run. They're huge up front, and they got a couple of backs, and they got a mobile quarterback. So you got to shore that up. I agree with you about Lee, Van Dyke. Those are senior leaders. They're not the ones that should be making the mistakes. They're the ones that should be leading by example. It seems to me in the last two games that Tyler Van Dyke, his mind sometimes is elsewhere. He goes through his progression, and then he's only trusting one guy.
So is he really going through his progression?
No, I'm saying.
That's what I want to talk about next, because, the biggest question.
Well, Jasmine, we can fold in a couple about just as the overall offense topics. I think some of this is also play calling. The offense looks stagnant with better competition. What happened to all the air raid concepts and the Tax Dawson's offense we're known for? And then I think some of the answers that's TBD. But to where you would go, got a similar question through Twitter. Can one of you answer me on this? Why did our offense change after the bye week? Why don't our linemen pull or trap anymore? Why aren't the receivers run crossing patterns?
Yeah.
We run up the middle every time now. This is not Dawson's offense. It does have Mario written all over it. So
yeah, I think that's a valid question.
It is a great question.
Those are all great questions because, what did happen to that? Right? You're noticing that, I don't even know how to answer it from a football perspective, but I can tell you this, right? The biggest question that everybody is asking is, or not even what the biggest question, the biggest statement right now is I guess it is a question. Is TVD the guy, right? What the heck is going on with TVD? And Blue, you started mentioning a little bit how he kind of goes into these funks where he's not all there. He's not making
like freshman funks.
He's not making the reads, right? He's not making.
Well, he goes through his progressions, but he doesn't see. He comes back in his first progression.
Because I think that he's so zeroed in on X. That's the biggest thing, right? Like, why is he only looking at him? We get that he's in the security blanket, but if you look back at the tape, if you look back at the game, and Fish, I don't know if you've done it yet, or Blue, but I've looked at a little bit, bits and pieces of it, and you see other receivers
that are open,
flying wide open. You've got Jacoby George on that 1 3rd down where he forced it into X, that it hit the back of the jersey of the North Carolina player. Right. You saw Jacoby George run open on that in route. You've seen Kobe Young, and I know we talk about Kobe Young he's not wide receiver one, but like there's times where he's getting open, and if you throw him the ball, he's gonna break tackles, right? He's a yak kind of guy. He's gonna break tackles. Jacoby George, you saw when you throw the ball up in the air and you make him go get it, he's gonna go get it. Right, so he's got great hands. We saw that on that one throw that TVD threw back across his body, and he had to snatch it out of nowhere. So you see this. Not only that, right? You're seeing some other players that, and this is the thing. This is the biggest question mark to me. Is we're talking about a team that has talented wide receivers. You see it with Brashard Smith. Now, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but Brashard Smith obviously played really well in this game. Right, he had that touchdown grab. He's great on kick returns. You saw him catch a couple of balls, make some plays. If you notice, X is not in on those plays, right? So you've got Rashard in. And to me, my question is, are the coaches kind of noticing the same thing we're noticing and saying, let's get X off the field and make him look at some other guys? And then there he goes looking at Rashard Smith's way. And he
may throw it to him on the sideline if he's over there.
Right.
Well,
careful.
I do think and Blue kind of touched on this a little bit. There's something mental going on here because the more that game got pressurized, the more he relied on his security blanket. Like it got progressively worse.
It did
as the game went on.
Mentions it 18 targets. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it didn't start that way. He was spreading the ball around a lot more at the beginning.
And he had the time, Vish.
Yeah,
he had the thing.
As the pressure got going, he just more and more just started to just zero in on the one receiver, and then ironically throws that terrible interception trying to force it to someone else when X was actually wide open in the flat. He could have just thrown it to him. So it's one of those days as well. But yeah, 18 targets is too much. Pimped down, absolutely. And also even I believe he had 11 catches and didn't even have 100 yards. That's because you're just like jamming the ball in there when he's not really even open for yardage. Like that's not successful either. So it was just.
And this is not a knock on X. X is a great receiver. And I think that sometimes I get that you have to go to him, right? He's going to make you a play. He's going to make the plays. He's doing great, right? He's probably the best slot receiver in college football right now with the numbers that he has. But at some point, you got to be able to really – you've got time because the offensive line is doing a good job of blocking.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. You've got time. Make your progressions and throw the ball where it needs to go. If you find some other guys that are open, not only that, I think the biggest disappointment out of all of this is the lack of usage of the tight ends.
None at all. It's non-existent.
What usage?
Yeah, or not even lack, right?
Yeah, it's non-existent.
I think it's a shame, and I know you hear Coach Cristobal talking in his interview saying we've got some great tight ends and we've got a great plan for them. They're part of the offense. You just haven't seen it yet. Well, yeah, no shit, we haven't seen it yet. The point is you've got Riley Williams, you've got now Arroyo's back in the fold, right? You've got obviously. Riley Skinner is in the doghouse apparently, so I don't know what the hell's going on with him. Aside from the fact that it looks like he can't block much, and then you even got Cam McCormick, who's been able to run some routes and caught a really nice ball down the middle. I think the second game of the season or something like that. So I think you've got to question a little bit the play calling recently from Shannon.
Well, I think I think the entire Blue talked about this a little bit earlier. Like at halftime, we're up 3. Even though just took a gun and shot ourselves in the foot over and over and over, and somehow we're up 3. That game should have been like a double-figure lead, and the offense at least should have had the one more touchdown when they drove all the way to the 2. And if you're up like 21-10 or something at the half, a lot of those mistakes were how quickly the game got. It was hit over the top. You're already losing again.
Yeah, Drake may seeing ghosts out there. You have 5 sacks. It was like 6 for 20 or something crazy.
Yeah, it was how swiftly the third quarter unraveled. It's unbelievable. They hit us over the top.
They hit a switch and boom.
Well, partially again with self-inflicted wounds. This time it sunk us. Though. They hit us over the top. We actually then drove the ball down. We were 1st and 10 on the UNC 41 when we fumbled the snap.
Yep.
And I think you could see every mistake. Then this unlike in the first half where the team appeared to stay even-keeled and continue to execute. In the second half, both offensively and defensively, every mistake seemed to just weigh on them, and then the next play, they were played worse. And the next play, they played worse. It was like almost the opposite. And it wasn't really until the fourth quarter. And you mentioned the fourth quarter started with that play you were talking about. It was actually a fourth down, Jazz, where he forced it into TVD into so much traffic that just hit a random defender that wasn't even playing defense on the ball because there was so many people around him. Like that's another and then they finally settled in. Then, like you said, some of it was frankly taking X off the field, so you'd have to go through progressions, hit some passes, but I think they collapsed under the weight of their mistakes, frankly, across the board. I don't know. Even when you're down what we were, you can still run the ball. I thought he got away we weren't that effective and weren't nearly as effective as I thought we were. But once we got down 2 scores, forget running. It was just throw. And I think that affected some of the play calling as well. The game was moving along so slowly that there was so much time left. There was no need to panic, but I felt like we collectively panicked. The defense too started taking more chances, and then that didn't end well either. I thought we did not respond well to the adversity in the third quarter.
Not in the third quarter.
4 turnovers, Vish, to none. That's the answer.
I want to mention.
Yeah, but the frustrating thing with that, Blue, is the fourth one was a throw into the end zone last week.
Okay,
but the three, I mean, as bad as the TVD throw was, which was a bad interception. I mean, one's snapping the ball, the other one's your workhorse running back needs to just run into the end zone. And then there was several plays, not to make excuses for the team, but there was several just, you'll never see this again. Like Matt Lee's not going to screw a snap up the rest of the year like that, but he did. I mean, Guidry's definitely not going to get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. But even right after Parrish fumble, Bain, who by the way is a beast, strips the ball out. You're like, we're going to get a safety or a touchdown. They pick it up and gain yardage. It's just like, the ball just in one of those days too. All of that came, and despite all of that, leading at the half was so going to halftime, everything. All right, we clean this up, we can really put this team away. And instead, they immediately scored. And so we took the lead twice and never actually took a snap with the lead. It's just that we never strung those multiple things together you need to win a football game. And then eventually it caved in. But I do agree with what you all said earlier. Like the effort was there. It was the execution wasn't there. The play calling was hit or miss.
I do want to mention something that I think is important to realize. And I think both of you can kind of attest to this. But, all these people calling for, we need to have more wide receivers play. We need to have Ray play and Harrell and Shamar Kirk. Yes, those are all talented guys, right? They're all talented guys. But let me just say, the guys that we have starting, Kobe Young, Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo, and then you got, the guys right behind them like Isaiah Horton, Rashard Smith, obviously you see him play, and even a little bit of Ray and some of the other. I mean, they're mixing guys in. We've got really talented wide receivers. Here's my problem that I see here. Why everybody's complaining? Why are they getting open? No, the problem here's what in a perfect world, nobody gets upset if X catches 15 balls a game, and he has 2 touchdowns, and TVD doesn't hit anybody else. In a perfect world. But you got to understand something. Wide receivers, first of all, they're the biggest divas on the field, right? Number one. Number two, they want their share. They want to catch footballs, right? So how do you think a wide receiver is going to feel when you got to line up and you got to run routes, and the wide receiver feels himself that he's not going to throw the football to me? So what's going to happen? The mentality of a football player is going to be like, well, if he's not going to throw football to me, I'm not going to run the crispest route. I'm not going to run the best route I can run. I'm not going to be aggressive on my cuts, on my posts, on my this, that, and the other. That's what's going to happen. Other wide receivers get complacent. They get kind of lazy in their route running. If you get a quarterback that's kind of zero in on one specific guy all the time, it's going to happen. And that's what maybe you see sometimes with some of these wide receivers. It's not that they're not open. It's not that they're not catching the football. That's how wide receivers, that's the mentality, right? If you're sitting there and you're expecting that you're running these routes and getting open, that the quarterback's going to go through progressions and find you open, throw you the football, you're going to catch the ball, you're going to be fine. But if you sit there and you think this guy's not going to throw it to me because all he's doing is looking at X the whole time, and again, that's not a knock on X, right? Shout out to him for freaking playing his heart out and playing great. But you got to be able to find some of your other playmakers. Look what happens when you find Jacoby George. And I know TVD got rocked on that play. Threw a touchdown pass, right? The couple of balls that you threw to Kobe Young, he's able to break some tackles. You run a screenplay with Isaiah Horton, and he gets 10, 15 yards. Like, you got to do those things, right? Where was the screenplay? They ran 3 screens, and each screen that they ran went for good yardage. So why aren't you doing those type of things? Why aren't you hitting your other wide receivers? I don't think it's because the other wide receivers are better that they're not seeing. Why are you sitting when I'm talking about like the guys on the bench? No, it's just that TVD needs to be able to, find these guys, throw them the ball a little bit more, get them more involved in the game, and you're going to have the opportunity to go over the top. You're going to have the opportunity to score more points, to stretch the field. That someone mentioned earlier, that if you're just throwing these mid to short route passes where catching the ball, what's going to happen? The defense is going to come up, right? They're going to play up. They're going to play closer to the line, closer to the box, and they're not scared of you throwing it over the top. So you've got to be able to stretch the field. You've got to be able to open it up in order for them to score more points and to be more aggressive. And obviously Miami's not doing that right now, so something's got to change. I don't think it's the receiver's fault.
But I think in the I think it got again progressively worse throughout the game because if you look at the like George had 6 catches,
Right.
and Brashard had 3, Horton had 4, Colby Young had 2, Harrell had 1. He did spread around some because we threw so much, and I think again, Jess, you actually we talked about this on the side, like giving up on the running game was a huge mistake. It wasn't really working, but that keeps them honest. Like once you're got
it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible.
Right.
They were only getting me like 3 or 4 yards a carry or something like that, but it was still moving the football. They were moving
right, and it again, it keeps the defense honest. It slows the pass rush down a little bit. It makes the linebackers look at the running back. That'll open up. One of the reasons we had all these dump offs to X in traffic for 3 yards and it was like pulling teeth is because we weren't running.
Yeah.
And everyone's squatting on the pass. So I think there's a lot going on there, where we frankly
there's a lot going on in this game, period.
yeah, it was I mean, we rarely touched on the fact that they ran for 235 on our ass.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was, by the way, we came into the game with the #1 run defense in the country, and just to me, that was as much as like all the mistakes, and certainly TVD had issues. The thing that caught me off guard was how ineffective we were running the ball again. Some of it was by choice. Like we didn't stick with as much as we should, and then how effective they were. Like that was them 235, us 70.
Yeah,
I would just know I did not see that coming at all, despite all the mistakes. That's the thing that worries me going forward.
Hampton, but I think that a lot of it also came. I mean, we were gassed. That defense was gassed. The depth was not there. You're missing some guys, and quite frankly, like you said, Vish, earlier, like even the safeties that come down and make some plays, you saw a lot of mistakes on their part as well. You saw a lack of execution. I'm okay. I'll be honest with you, though, with all that being said, I still think that the defense is pretty solid. It's pretty solid defense. I think that they still they just are lacking depth
But I think
positions that could help stop the run, which is defensive tackle.
I agree with that. And then again, we talked about this on the side, so I'm kind of stealing your point, but like, Mesidor not being there is a huge.
Yeah.
He was all ACC last year, and Ruben Bain's playing great. But like you said, there's your depth. Come on,
Yeah,
Ruben Bain should be coming off. Ruben Bain should be coming off the bench in like third down situations and lighting him up, not having to play every play as a true freshman. And so that's
they shouldn't even have to be told to do that. I was going to say, but if you're doing a North Carolina show tonight, you're saying we had 517 yards and 14 penalties.
Yeah,
we could have just killed them. I mean,
well, they did.
So there's two sides to every coin, and
absolutely.
They were making, every time you talk about shooting themselves in the foot, that they kind of aided us a lot of times, from a couple of those plays were called back. I just think that if we could define, I don't think we can define the problems. You can't, because if you say, well, his progressions or this, don't throw to Xavier so much. What is it? Are they not? Is Dawson's offense maybe doesn't suit a lot of these kids?
I don't know.
If it doesn't suit the quarterback, then you might as well. If a guy can't drive the car, then there's no use having passengers.
Yep.
So
this is the question I have for you guys. We'll end the North Carolina and kind of discussion.
We're playing Clemson this week. This is like, so we should talk about that too. I mean, Clemson, man, Dabo's coming to Miami,
and I'll mention that also because this is a big game. This is definitely a big game. My question to you is this, right? And this is kind of like a question that leads into Clemson. With considering TVD's struggles right now, the team is still only 4-2, right? So we're still in the thick of it where we can still compete. We can still, end up with, let's say 7-5, 8-4 record. I mean, it's still on the table where Miami, if they play well, we've seen it, right? If they play really good football, they can beat some of these teams, right? So the question on the other end is, though, if you see TVD struggle again, right? If you see him do what he's been doing the last couple of games again, and we lose another game to Clemson, right? And now we're 4-3. The question starts being, at this point, do you start to see what you have in Emory Williams? Do you bench?
I don't.
TVD? Do you start to say
those guys aren't ready for No.
Well, it doesn't matter at that point, is what I'm saying, right?
Yes,
like,
it always matters. It always
you
matters.
got to get to a bowl game. So you get to a bowl game, get 6-7 wins, and then decide what you're going to do. But
you can also mess a quarterback up by putting them out there when they're not ready. Like this is not look, and this is a team, and this is a program that needs to win football games.
I agree.
It has not been doing that, and as much as like the schedule is going to be a pain in the ass now, like that Georgia Tech game. We're gonna have one more loss than we should have the rest of the year, obviously. But
that's exactly
not getting that win puts us in some jeopardy here. But there's also opportunities, even within a season that maybe doesn't meet expectations. You have Clemson, you have Florida State, you have Louisville, you have North Carolina State. Those are 4 opportunities to pull off a really good win. Right? If you win one of those, like we beat Clemson this weekend, we still might go 7-5.
Yeah.
But you beat Clemson. Right,
Yeah.
and I think, and that's the stuff you can use to build.
You already
on
beat
top
Texas A&M.
and those are things you can use to build on top of. When a team is rebuilding, which is clearly what we've been doing for 20 years now, there is very little that's discernible between a team that's rebuilding correctly and going to be good and one that is going to fail. You can look at those early 90 teams. I can tell you right now, in 1999, and this is the year before we were the best team in the country. When we blew a 20-point lead to East Carolina and lost, I sure wasn't thinking, oh, yeah, next year we're going to kill everyone. We're going to beat Florida State. We're going to beat Virginia Tech. We're going to blow Florida out in the Sugar Bowl. I was not thinking that as a year away from it. But
there's always going to be games like that.
Yeah, as you're building. But there's like people trying to read between that and say, oh, this is a sign. You don't know.
Right.
We saw that now. We went
understand that 7-5 or 8-4 is actually a very successful season, considering
given the crappy roster you had to have last
exactly.
year.
It's a turnover.
It's a total rebuild.
But it is if you put the pieces in place to build on top of, and there are still, it would be in one way it would be better if we just had like all we had left was bottom feeders in the ACC, because that is possible now with the unbalanced schedule, and we could just easily get to 9 wins and not beat anyone. Like, if you look at Louisville's conference schedule, it's a joke, right? That's how they're building this record out. But in this case, we don't have that. But we do have the opportunity to legitimately notch some wins. Like, that's a good win. That's something that can help you build confidence. We're also going to take some losses because of it, too. But, that's why, but to answer your question, that's why I would not do it. Like, the last thing we need is, like, Emory having to go into Tallahassee and, like, get crushed by Florida State and have, like, no, let TVD work through this.
I'm with you.
He threw for 391 yards. I know some of it was garbage time, but it wasn't. I think again. I think all of the. I think he did it.
You know what I mean?
He was schizophrenic. Some of the throws he made, you're like, whoa. And then the next play, you're like, why'd you force that to quadruple coverage when everyone else is wide open?
And then he goes to Jacoby after his collarbone broken, basically.
Yeah. And then even on the next last drive, he dropped that right into Burchard for that bomb, right? I mean, but then the next play, he's forcing it in again. Even again, we were gonna lose, but
he's inconsistent right now.
But
he's gonna. Look how many years he's been there. It's not like it's his first year.
He's always been like that.
Yeah.
Like
so
I remember when we shoved Brad Kai into the spotlight against Louisville on the road on opening day. Come on, how much pressure are you going to put on a kid?
Yeah, and so I think for him, like, is he the second coming of anything? No, but is he the best we've got right now? Absolutely. So
100% agree.
By far.
100%. By the way, this question from Pitt Down before we get to Clemson: does TVD come back next year? When I look at him on the sidelines, I really wonder if his heart is in it. So I don't know. I don't. The second part. I mean, he's not a vocal leader by any means. So that's number one. Number two, does TVD come back? I think that it doesn't matter if he comes back or not. I don't think he'd be the quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes next year either way. If he did come back, he'd probably be a transfer guy. And to be quite honest with you, I think that at this point, I think that the Hurricanes it would strap them. It would hold them down if he did come back and they put him at quarterback again next year. I think that would be the biggest mistake.
I think a lot of that depends on how the last 6 games go.
Yeah, half the season.
I still think that he
could go to UConn next year and appease all the people. And say, hey, look, I'm home.
Yeah, or go to Alabama.
That ain't happening.
That's it. That ship has sailed, my friends.
But I think again, it depends on the context in which this season ends.
I think that if you bring TVD back, regardless of the last 6 games, if you bring him back, that will
Yeah.
completely
That will
destroy
send
the
a signal that you're not trying to build for the future.
Yeah, that will completely destroy the quarterback room for years. to come.
Well, there's only 2 other quarterbacks in the quarterback room,
Yeah.
and we're looking in the portal for an immediate starter. So I don't
It's
see
gonna
what the
happen.
difference.
No, I'm telling you right now, that's gonna happen. So,
Yeah, but I don't see what the difference is between bringing a portal guy and having TVD come back.
Maybe a guy that beat USC in the Sugar Bowl last year would be a little step up.
yeah, you get a better quarterback.
Again, I think you need to let the season play out.
But
I don't
look,
think he's coming back either. But I will say, you know,
Yeah, he's not leaving this year, so that's
yeah. Well, and again, I think you have to see how his prospects are totally dependent on the rest of the season.
Yeah,
plays
I
out.
just
Like
don't see him. I don't see the Kings bringing him back regardless. But I mean, stranger things have happened.
I mean, the part I do want to talk about is wonder if his heart is in it. That kid got the ass beat out of him and kept playing. Like he did not need to be in. Like he was rushing the team up to the line to get that last snap off to try and get one more score, even though the game was over, and threw another interception.
Yeah.
Like he never stopped competing. And so I'm not going to question his heart. Like I could see, I was there. I could see him getting the crap beat out of him.
Yeah,
and he kept playing, and he got lit up quite a few
He's a tough
times.
kid, man. He's a tough
And
kid.
we can
He's
question.
just limited in what he can do as well.
Right,
Like,
right. We can limit. We
he's
can.
Drake May, and he's not. Right, he doesn't have the legs for that.
Right. We can question his decision making for sure. Some of the throws he made, but in terms of the effort and his heart being in it, he had every excuse to get out of that game.
I agree,
and he didn't.
He took some shots, man.
And he kept fighting. Like I will say, the one thing, if we want to end a little bit positive, maybe do some price picks and talk Clemson. But last year this team does not. We were down 38-17 after imploding in the third quarter and beginning of the fourth quarter. This team fought back and kept coming at them, and
yep.
I ended up losing by 10,
60-17.
Yeah. But this team at least they kept fighting, and I'll give the kids credit for that, because last year we lose this game by 40. Like after the bottom falls out in the third quarter, there's no way they're fighting back in the fourth quarter and winning that by 10 points.
No chance.
Still desperately trying to get back in the game and make plays, and getting into even the position to hit Burchard over the top or get X the touchdown, the fourth down, all of that stuff. And then even then, like after we didn't get the onside kick, the defense finally did get that 3 and out. Like none of that was happening last year. The team was on the bench and it quit. So I do think there has, again, it's finding silver linings in a cloud, but I do think there has been some growth in that area, because this last year that is a 30 to 40 point loss.
Yeah.
When the bottom fell out in the third quarter, the fourth quarter would have just been all the players with their heads in their hands on the bench while UNC just went up and down the field. Instead, we actually came back at them and started scoring. So that was at least a positive sign in terms of where the team is mentally and attitude-wise. Now, there's physical limitations and there's all the other stuff we talked about. It's going to continue to hold them back for now.
Let's do it. PrizePicks.com. Y'all go check them out. This is it's real simple. This is a great way to play some daily fantasy football or hockey or soccer or whatever you want to play. Make some money. Go to PrizePicks.com. You're going to log in, put in the code 5 FIVE, and they will match your initial deposit up to $100. Make sure once you log in, you press the code, put the code in 5. It's for FIVE, and it will match your initial deposit up to $100. It's real simple. Choose anywhere between 2 to 5 players. Choose the over/under on their individual categories. And win some money. You can mix and match players from different teams, different divisions, different sports. You can do the NHL, you can do the NBA, NFL, Formula One, Major League Baseball. You can do it all on PrizePicks.com. You've got great big payouts up to 25 times what your deposit is, what your bet is, what your I guess what your deposit is. They've got great support staff, and of course, you can make some easy money on there. So make sure you go to PrizePicks.com, log in, put in the code 5 FIVE, and they will match your deposit up to $100. Check them out. It's PrizePicks.com. Yeah, so we go from one big game to another, and this is definitely a must. In my eyes, it's a must-win game for the Miami Hurricanes. Again, it's going to be another tough one because Clemson is starting to play a little bit better football. But another team that is beatable, guys. We've seen them struggle against some other teams. They don't have the horses that they had before. Okay, They don't have the guys on the outside that you say you look back and you go, wow, this is going to be dangerous. Will Shipley's a hell of a running back, Blue. You mentioned their running back room is a really good one. But again, he's not Etienne, right? He's not CJ Spiller. He's not some of these guys that they've had there in the past that kind of freak you out and say this guy's gonna. I mean, he could do it because he's that talented. But saying all of that, right? Kate Clubding, obviously a 5-star quarterback coming in, and of course their defense is always a tough defense. So all that said, this is a winnable game for the Miami Hurricanes. Again, I think they need to come out and they need to execute. They can't continue to make the mistakes that they made last week. And if they come out and they win this football game, now you're talking about a team that's 5-2 going into FSU, right? It's FSU week after.
No, it's Virginia. It's Virginia.
Oh, Virginia and then FSU, right?
Oh yeah, Virginia. How?
Okay.
Can't forget them.
So you go into a game against a team. Again, I know you can't take any team, for granted anymore. Period at all. But look, you're sitting at 5-2. It's not bad, man. All things considered, you're talking about a football program that has improved, that's fighting, that's putting the effort in. They've got some talent, and if they pull off a nice win against a really good Clemson team, you're still in the thick of it, right? You're still in the thick of it for a really good position, for a tough bowl game. For even I don't know about the ACC because now you got 2 ACC losses, but
it's tough,
you still got an opportunity to compete, to make some noise, and then you still got FSU coming up, which again another really good football program that you can still beat as well. So
it's actually it's Clemson, then Virginia, then NC State, then FSU.
Oh wow, okay. I don't know why for some reason I thought FSU.
But so you do have an opportunity to, I mean, again, knock on wood and all that.
I mean, you've got an opportunity to be 7-2 when you go in to play FSU, right? Like
there's an opportunity to string some games.
I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I did get pissed off obviously against UNC and I was knee jerking. And if you follow our account on Twitter. You would have seen me just go crazy a little bit.
So, little aside here. I will say, if anyone ever complains about Hard Rock Stadium again, like just punch them in the face. Like this place we were watching this game at, like not up to standard. There's no Wi-Fi, even though you're on a college campus. The internet wasn't working, so I didn't see any of the. I think Melissa was sitting next to me. I think her phone was kind of working, so stuff was dribbling in. Like I saw none of the discourse during the game, and I logged into just like someone had lit Twitter on fire. I'm like, I showed you my notification. I didn't realize there was a show more on notification. I did like 5 times to get to the bottom of my notifications. It was a different way to watch a game. I didn't get involved in the group think of what everyone was saying on Twitter. It was a little bit of an interesting experience. But yeah, to your point, I think we all kind of that was deflating. But then this week there's another opportunity, right? It's Clemson,
another primetime game at home.
Yeah, it's a home night game. This is, and I view these as more so than threats at this point. Because to your point, Jazz, like I mean, we're talking about bowl positioning. Like the stakes aren't there where like this is going to ruin the season,
right?
But it could elevate the season. So these are opportunities to me versus. I'm glad we have these tough games because. The more times you test yourself there, the better you're going to get. And it doesn't do anyone any favors to have like that 1 year where Al Golden like won 9 games because we only beat bad teams. Like no one had won more than 4 games by the end of the season. Like that's not going to do you any favor. It's just like Blue said, it's good to start the season with those cupcakes, but then when it got real, like we weren't really ready for it. Even Georgia Tech, right? They elevated the stature.
They elevated their game too,
Yeah,
they made the whole year.
Yep. Yeah, so I would say like this game is a good opportunity for us to really do something substantive. You beat Clemson, it's still Clemson,
yeah,
right? And then that's something you can put we recruit against them. They come into South Florida to get kids. Like this is a huge opportunity for us.
Blue, is this as much? I know this is going to sound cliche as hell, but is this as much a mental and emotional game as it is a physical one at this point because of what Miami has already been through this season, right? Dropping that one to UNC, the Georgia Tech game, kind of going through all this stuff. This is an opportunity for Miami not only to win, a tough football game, but to this plays into again, the culture that Mario and this whole entire staff is trying to build, this toughness, this team, this mental toughness. As cliche as it sounds, it is a thing, right? It's a real thing. So
Well,
this is an opportunity for them to build that up as well, isn't it?
Lost 2 straight, and
Yeah.
you got to get back that winning feeling. I mean, to me, that's important because a lot of these, you remember, there are a lot of young guys on this team,
Right.
and if they were here last year, they tasted a lot of negatives. So, yeah, it is. I just think that the battle on the line of scrimmage has got to be won, and that's where I think Clemson's improved from last year and early this year to now. I mean, they're a veteran offensive line. The Tristan Lee kid, the Will Putnam kid is really, really good. The kid from down here, Marcus Tate from University Schools, probably one of the best players. So I think they got to win that. The Mitchell Mays is a senior. So they got a lot of guys on that offensive line. And that's where we got to our defensive front seven has got to step up and not let them gash us and not let them use the running game, with Shipley and Maffa and some of the other guys that they have. And but I think that this is where this game is really going to be controlled. It's on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And for us to stop Clemson and giving them a lot of momentum. And, sometimes we make these average receivers look like all-stars. I mean, and that Troy Stellato is going to want to come back here and catch 20 balls because he's from here. And, Miami never recruited him and he had a chip on his shoulder. So I just think that Miami's got to, on the offensive side of the ball, provide enough. And I think they did that last week. They provided protection. There was times that I said,
the offensive line is not the problem on this.
No. And I kept saying to myself, holy Christmas. If he knew he was going to have that long to throw the ball, holy mackerel. Now, but I think on the other side, Miami's got a good defensive front seven, but not deep. And that we were talking about depth. I think if there's the defense is where we have a lack of depth. And I mean, I watched the secondary. I mean, is Darryl Porter that much better than putting Davis? Davis is a slot.
I think Darryl Porter had the best game he's had all year.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. But Davis, to me, if he's going to the next level, he's got to be a slot defensive back. He's got to cover the slot, and I think he could do it. He's just not a guy you want matching up against a 6'3" guy. 6'4" guy.
Yeah, but I think the issue there is as far as Darryl Porter, they're not really even throwing at his side of the field. He's been our best corner this year.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fine. I mean,
so I don't know where you put it.
No, I'm just saying. No.
Well, we probably have too many slot corners. It's just misbalanced, I think, a little bit there. But to your point, Blue, I think the corollary to that is, and you talked about both sides of the ball, we've got to run the ball better than we did against North Carolina. We got to be able to possess it. We need to generate first downs out of it for two reasons. One, it does make then TBD's game a lot easier, but two, it keeps our defense off the field because there's just no depth there. And I will say, even for the starters, I was really disappointed in our linebacker play against North Carolina. And I know we knew it was a weakness coming to the year, and you kind of beat up on little sisters of the poor, and you kind of forget about that. And then you play a real opponent with a real big time running back and a big offensive line. All of a sudden, you remember.
And then tight ends who block.
You quickly get reminded that was actually a weakness on this team, and that's why there's 2 transfer linebackers starting, and all of that comes right to the front. I mean, all due respect to KJ Cloyd, he was not getting snaps at Louisville, and he's a starting linebacker now. I mean, that's the reality. And then he's played well this year, but that's your starter. So you can think about the depth behind him when you start getting worn down, and you got to cycle people in, and that the way you fix that in the short term, you're not going to bring a bunch of new guys in, is to have the offense possess the ball more. But we also just got to overall limit the big plays. That is. Defensively, you got to make them earn it more than that. When we went up 14-7 against North Carolina, they ran 3 plays in a row and got a total of 50 yards on it, and we're inside of our 20. You can't do that. So to me, I think Clemson actually lacks some of the explosion that North Carolina had, so I think we'll be better able to do that. But just make them earn it, make them drive the ball down the field a little bit more and not give up the big plays. And I think we'll be in much better shape. Plus, I mean, we do play better at home, so I mean, there's a lot going for us in this game. Clemson's not really an explosive passing team. Like, I mean, our dumb luck again. Their superstar wide receiver gets to come back to burn us, even though he didn't play the rest of the year, right? I mean, it's everything lined up badly in that game. Maybe this time we'll get a little bit of roll of the dice, but I think if we can just limit the chunk plays in the running game, like make them grind it out for 5 yards of carry and run it all the way down the field, right? But if we can, because Clemson makes a ton of mistakes, that's why they lose games. Like that Duke game was obviously an extreme example of that, but if you look at where they were, the Florida State game too, they had them beat and they screwed it up. They make a ton of mistakes. You got to make them make plays, make them methodically move the ball down the field, and let them screw up. And I think that's on the defense to just limit the big plays. Big game for James Williams and Cam Kitchens.
Yeah, it's a good. I wanted to say that. I think that this is a game for Cam Kitchens to kind of get himself back into form because he's been struggling a little, obviously coming back from injury, but. He hasn't looked the same, and I think that this is an opportunity for him to kind of get back into form, and I think that that's going to be huge in this game because, if we can, like you said, Blue, if they can control the line of scrimmage a little bit, they're going to be forced to throw it down the field, and that's where you got to come up big. I think James Williams, all things considered, didn't have the best game either, but he's been playing a lot better this year as well, so I'm hoping that he kind of gets into form as well and kicks some ass in this game. I think Miami has an opportunity. He's got a big shot of winning this football game if they execute and they kind of keep the mistakes to a minimum. Look, this is a mentally tough team already. We've seen them come back from these screw ups, right? We've seen them come back from making mistakes and look like a team that doesn't let it affect them, right? I mean, look, the 21-point quarter. They wore them down defensively, depth, yada, yada, yada. We can go back to that. But it's time to look forward now. I think this is a tough team. I think that they are going to be in a position to win this football game. And if they can minimize those mistakes and kind of just stay mentally tough and stick to the plan, Shannon Dawson's got to get his crap together too and put together a hell of a game plan. And then it's up to the players to execute it. So we'll see. I like Miami to be able to to really come in and play a really good game this game. So
yeah. And to your point, Jazz, like we've been on the wrong end, even against A&M with the turnovers. Like remember we came out in that game immediately at a block punt. Like we gotta flip that. Those tend to even out. So we obviously last weekend it went all the way the one direction.
Yep.
Like maybe like if we win the turnover battle. We've been playing a lot of uphill football the last 2 weeks with just stuff going wrong, and it'd be nice to get some breaks to go our way, too, just as on top of that, because we just have not caught a break the last 2 weeks.
Quick recruiting update, Blue. You got anything on? I know Pim Down has asked that question. How big was that New Orleans win over Central, and does Miami start to recruit Enyo Yapur harder now?
Not their type of quarterback. I love Enyo, 5'11". Not. I mean, listen, great high school quarterback. He's just not the type of guy that Miami would recruit. That game was great.
New Orleans got some big players, though, big time players, don't they?
Yeah, well, they're going places. I mean, they got the 3 kids going to Rutgers, the 2 twins and the offensive lineman, which Miami. Maybe they could get back on him.
What's the kid's name again? I think I don't remember his name now.
I'll think of it. He's 6'7". I'll think of it in just a second. Raynor's his first name. I'll think of it in a second. Raynor Smith, maybe. But I mean, that's one of those games. It's one of those instant classics, guys. But here's the deal: it was 20-0 at halftime, and I said to somebody, I said, listen, Central comes out and scores again. I'm gone. It'll be 27-0. What am I going to wait around in this craziness for? I mean, the place was packed. They come out. New Orleans gets a long run, makes it 20-7. Then they get a pick six, make it 20-14. And then they get a play. Ennio made a nice play to the wide receiver, and it's 20-20. Going in the fourth quarter, they score. It's 26-20. New Orleans scores. It's 26-26. They go to overtime.
Wow.
A kid who hadn't kicked a damn extra point all night kicks a field goal to win it.
Of course.
So, yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's a third-round rematch in the playoffs, definitely, unless one of them gets clipped by Booker T. And without Booker T's quarterback, they lost. That may not be likely. But I just think Central – listen, just think about this. Central's 3-3. They've lost a total of three games by 10 points to the number 1 and 3 teams in the country. They lost to Gorman by 4, Chaminade by 4. Come on.
That's rough, man.
Yeah, that's kind of rough. They're still, in my book, I mean, there's very few teams that could beat them. But, Miami's trying. I mean, every time I see Chaminade, you just say, wow. I mean, they got some dudes. From all accounts, I guess people keep saying that the Blunt kid's going to reclassify.
Right. That could be big for Miami. I mean,
he's
the best defensive tackle in the country, right?
9 sacks in the last 2 games, so that's not terrible.
Yeah.
He's a great athlete. I mean, he's the number 1 shot putter in his class in the nation. I mean, so he's very athletic.
And then you got Shavers as well, who's coming in.
Shavers is playing well. I mean, he had a really good game. I think if they could lock down Ezekiel Marceline he's a 25 kid, but he's a lot like Wesley, but he covers better. So if you get him aboard, I think Miami will start tapping into these. I'm not going, the biggest question asked me by everybody. Oh, how'd that loss to Georgia Tech and the North Carolina hurt? Kids are not coming on what's happening right now.
They see the bigger picture. They definitely
see the bigger pixture. And you know what? You don't choose a damn, it's a life choice. I mean, if you go to that school for 4 years and, like Xavier Restrepo, he's going to walk out of that damn school with 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, and that's why I'm saying that for I know nowadays with the NIL and transfer portal, the loyalty isn't always there, but for those type of kids who want to be products of the system and the program, and Miami's a great academic school. It's not like I could take myself out of the mix, but it's not like you're selling UNLV. although we got off to our first 5-1 start in 42 years.
That's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to the fighting Larry Bluestings out there, man.
Yeah, well, now they start playing people. They play Colorado State, who's something, and Fresno, who's something. But, you look at Miami, and Vish made a great point. You just got to go out there and execute. And you got to go out there and stop making those mistakes that are really shooting you in the foot. I mean, because he's 100% right. If Miami plays, and executes and gets a game, Miami wins that game last week. And the same thing, excuse me, fighting a cough. Clemson this week, same thing. But the fact is now those young kids, they've lost 2 in a row. And this is when the coaches have to step it up this week in practice. And, get inside their heads a little bit. But you're right. Shannon Dawson has disappointed. Really, I'm not going to mince words. I just think he's been disappointing. And, and people, well, what do you expect him to do? Well, motivate your players, teach your players. You got a running game. Why do you keep running tackle to tackle all the time when you can burst a couple outside or get those kids in space and throw to them? You have tight ends, like you both mentioned. Yep. You have 3 really good, but 2 really good tight ends, and you're not using them.
Yeah, and then actually Anthony talked about, TBD constantly having to, this is another offensive coordinator for him and all that. But, Shannon Dawson's the quarterback coach too.
Yeah.
Like exactly. If TBD's struggling to go through progression, some of it's TBD, some of it there's
that's
a coach.
On him.
But there's also a coach responsible for helping with that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both, right? I mean, we don't. I did see some stuff when I caught up on my Twitter, which I probably should just hit delete on the whole app. But some people say, well, guys are open, so I don't blame Dawson. I'm like, he's also the quarterback coach.
Exactly.
If our running backs struggle to do basic things, we're going to go to the running back coach. How come they can't pick up a blitz? How come they can't do this? Like, this is a basic to get through progressions. Yeah, some of it you expect your veteran quarterback to do that, but also, hey, the quarterback coach, like, get in his ear. Like, if we're all seeing it, and the numbers pointed out too, so it's like we were hallucinating, that he is forcing the ball to X.
Yeah.
At what point does the quarterback coach on the sideline between one of these possessions be like, dude, you got to go through your progressions, man. Like, what are you doing? And like, how does that not come from the offensive coordinator / quarterback coach? Sorry, guys, I know we're about to wrap up, but I do want to ask Blue a question on something quarterback related. So you did mention that what's his name? Enio Yapor is not he's
a shorter version,
right? But what is the quarterback? Because what is our offense basically? Because you mentioned the ideal Miami quarterback. Because we got Emory Williams and Jakari Brown are totally different.
Yeah.
TBD was inherited. What would be like a quarter? Like, what are we even looking for?
All the quarterbacks you have: 6'4", 6'4", 6'3", 6'3", 6'4". See, so that's evidently
you got Bud Anderson, who's 6'6".
6'6".
Yeah,
and then Nichols, who's 6'2.5". Evidently, it's not a 5'10" guy. UCF could probably thrive with Enio Yapor more. Tough kid, and I'm not saying anything bad about him. He'll play Division I football, just not in Miami's scheme.
Right.
I believe. I mean, most of the people, and here's my point, Vish, they'll hear the name Enio Yapor, or somebody will tell them, "Oh, look at this kid." They never seen him. You got to watch him play.
Yep.
And the whole thing is look at Daniel Richardson. Perfect example. Daniel Richardson looks like, I call him the Pillsbury throw boy, because he's like, short. But look what he did. He crushed USF by himself. He went to Central Michigan and did extremely well. I mean, there's got to be a place for all these quarterbacks. You just can't thrust somebody into a situation. Say, okay, you'd be a great fit.
Right.
But I can't answer you, Vish. I don't know who the perfect quarterback is, but I know that
the quarterback is going to get us W's.
Yeah, but you could see, Vish, the way they're recruiting, the perfect quarterback's not 5'10".
Okay.
That's the only thing I can say. That,
right.
And I said that to his dad. I says, everything's based on measurables, and they all think that you bring in a short guy, he's not going to see over the line of scrimmage. Every play he makes, every snap he takes, he's going to be running left or right before he goes back in the pocket. See, because he's going to be short and he's going to have a 6'5" offensive tackle and a 6'6" defensive end coming in at him, and it's going to crush his sight lines. So what he has to do is he all of a sudden has to break containment and get, and that's bad, because then you have to retrain your offensive line, because if your offensive line starts moving, they're going to reach back a lot. They're going, and you're going to get holding. So you just can't thrust anybody into a situation. Van Dyke is probably as good as you get for this situation, because he's never going to run. I mean, significantly, he's never going to run. So, but his first step, and I was watching him before, he's always going back. He's never taken the ball and going left or right. And that's what you see out of a lot of those shorter guys.
So as we get out of here, Anthony, I know you asked for my thoughts. This is going to take all of 10 seconds. We talked about this topic earlier, so you can go back to it in terms of benching TBD. It's not going to happen. We universally think it's a terrible idea. No, I don't think it'll help his confidence at all. Probably hurt it even worse, and it's going to be bad for whoever we stick in there that's not ready.
Yeah, now Jalen Milroe's beating everybody and then some. So,
guys, check us out the rest of this week. We'll have some more content for you coming up very shortly in the next couple of days. We'll do some stuff together. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at 6ringscanes, and we'll announce some stuff so you guys can stay tuned.
And then buckets on. Buckets on Thursday. We got a guest. That's a good guest lined up for that. And then, as Jazz said, a lot of podcast only content coming out. So if you're not subscribed to the podcast feed, which is not the YouTube channel, there's a podcast feed. Definitely do that. You're going to miss a bunch of our content.
So it's on Miami's preseason 13.
Yes, they are.
Yes, we will be talking about that on Buckets.
Okay, good tease.
We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.